All right, so today, and by today I mean yesterday, we learned about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I took a deep dive into it because in the vibe coding world, what's very popular is something called React, something called Next, and something called Vercel, which I will spend another time diving into those things. But in the course that I'm taking, they were talking about using these things. And I was like, what are these things exactly? Because yes, you can go and use them and do things with them, but it's like, what is it? And like I said before, it's really helpful for me to take the deep dive, but also learn it in terms of things that I understand. And I will continue to sing the praises of AI actually on threads today. Someone posted about, a woman posted basically echoing the same sentiment, that it allows you to learn at your own pace and you can ask it a million fucking questions and you can just keep asking it and be like, explain it again. And here's what I think. Is this right? Clean this up. Explain it back to me. Put it in terms of things that I understand. And you can really, truly learn stuff and grasp stuff. So what the focus was on yesterday, and I decided to actually make this video today because I was like, actually, let's sleep on it. Let's see if it's still in there. Do a little test. I actually came on here and then did some more discussion with chat about React because I really wasn't understanding it. But the deep dive yesterday was HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I have some familiarity with what these things are from doing things with my WordPress site. And so because of that, I also went into PHP and PHP files because I was like, wait, what the fuck is that? And I usually have chat explain things in terms of things that I know I'm familiar with PHP files, hosting. I use DigitalOcean. And so I was like, what is this in terms of like I was speaking about before with Vercel and React and Next. And the long and the short, HTML gives a structure to things. CSS, what's it going to look like? JavaScript, the behavior. PHP files, those live on the server. They are interpreted by an interpreter in the server, and they will produce HTML that gets sent to the browser in response to a request that comes from the browser. The HTML will get rendered browser side. The HTML also points to, links at, I don't know the correct language, but that's where we're going to see CSS and JavaScript come in, right? It's not like in the PHP files there's going to be a CSS file, and there's going to be a JavaScript, a JS file as well, and that will get what I want to use is kind of pointed to by the HTML, and then those files will be requested by the browser. Again, living they're living in the I can't get my words out. They're living in the server. So we said HTML, the structure of things, CSS, the appearance, what it looks like, but JavaScript, this is where shit gets crazy, the behavior of things. And so what I was trying to understand today was React. And React, as I understand it, is a library of JavaScript, right? It's a JavaScript library. And basically that means it's not like a different language, right? JavaScript is a language that gets interpreted by the browser on the browser side of things, right? Let me get my exact it's a programming language that runs in the browser. Okay. But why this is such a big deal is as we're moving into apps, which is what vibe coding is all about. I shouldn't say it's all about, but it's largely about. There is a more, what is the word I want to use? State-based nature to things. Is someone logged in? Are they not logged in? So if we start thinking about vibe coding, then we're thinking about apps. And that's different than a static site. So one of the things that was difficult conceptually for me is that my world is largely static sites. Even though people want to kind of think that it's not, it's like you have a fucking blog and a podcast on it. It's a static site. And we have what seemingly is a little bit overbuilt with what we were using. But, I used WordPress because I wanted to have a membership, and that's going to make things more dynamic. Because you're going to be logged in versus not logged in. Things user state changes with that. But for like a regular site, you don't need that. When we start to have comments being added, but who the fuck wants that? That's when things change, and you don't have to not have a static site, but I believe we're talking about like plugins and just like there's workarounds then. But you can deploy a super simple site these days. And the example that was used was this thing called like Netlify or Netlify. The guy said it weird, but it's spelled Netlify. So whatever emphasis goes on whatever syllable. But you can deploy a very static website very quickly because nothing needs to change, right? The files are the files, is there, it's done. What is good to like, so what I'm learning about and starting to understand is like where things live and where things take place. Just like we said, if you have PHP files, which is what I use for WordPress, right? Those are living in the server. They're going to get interpreted over there, and then HTML gets produced from that, and that gets sent to the browser, rendered in the browser, CSS and JavaScript as well being browser side. And so understanding like what goes on where is seemingly very important when you're going to like build stuff, because you do have those options with the things that you're using. But this is why I took the deep dive on this. And JavaScript is kind of like the connection, because when I was like, hey, chat, let's learn about Vercel, let's learn about React, and let's learn about Next. And it said, okay, we're going to start with React. And I was like, okay, React is largely going to be concerned with the user interface for apps. And the reason that this is different than a traditional website is because it's state-based, right? It has to change. Largely, the biggest example that I can give is like, are you logged in? Are you not? Like, are there comments to this? Like, it's not this just static state of things. So I was in the computer trying to understand that. And I am getting it. I'm like, okay, I see the utility of this. And part of understanding is trying to move away from what I'm so familiar with, which is websites that largely could be static. They're not. They're dynamic, but they could be. And this will, like I've talked about before, likely become more apparent to me and easier to understand as I build stuff, and like not build stuff to ship it, but just like to understand and make a site really quickly and be like, okay, cool. This is what it looks like. This is like the components of this. This is how I built this. This is like the back end of this, and really understanding that. So, side note, I'm forever grateful that I use WordPress. My first site was on Squarespace. I then got a WordPress site built out, and my guy is the best. His name is Joe. And then because of like the way that it was coded, and I was like trying to change the home screen and the homepage, and I was like, where the fuck is it? Like, I don't understand this. And so at one point, after a few years, I was like, and he was very like helpful with things and was willing to teach me all the things. Like, he's the best. And then ChatGPT came around. And I got this website in like 2018, but ChatGPT came around, and I was like, I'm going to fucking try and learn how to do stuff. And so, mucking around and learning stuff, I'm super grateful for that. And it allows my brain to understand, like, okay, because I'm also self-hosted. So I'm like understanding, okay, this works with this. Okay, I can see being those PHP files and understanding that. So the difficulty is that that's my familiarity. And now I'm kind of going to switch my brain into understanding about apps, because, applications, we call them apps. It sounds so sexy. And I'm like, applications. But it feels a little bit like semantic-y there. But switching my brain and understanding that, like, okay, this is like this, but not, and this is why it has to be different. So the last thing that I was just chatting with Chad about was, I'm like, where the fuck did React come from? I'm like, that's helpful for me. Understanding PHP files. But PHP, by the way, stands for personal homepage. Stood for that, and then they changed that. I was like, oh, interesting. But I'm like, why? Why is it necessary? What was going on before, and why can we not keep doing that? And basically, it came about because of fucking Facebook. Fucking Facebook. I think it was 2011. Basically, shit kept breaking. Right? And it's my understanding that basically the user interface, right? Because you're logged in or you're not logged in, or there's like comments and there's likes and there's all these things that are constantly changing. And that shit kept breaking. And as I understand it, part of this, or a large part of this, ties into what's called the DOM or the DOM. I don't really know if you say it or you acronym it, but it makes more sense to say DOM, but the DOM, which let me see what it stands for here. DOM stands for Document Object Model, which is like the representation of what the user interface should look like. And that relies on JavaScript. All right. Let me just make sure. Receives it, it builds it. Java does not change the HTML. It changes the DOM. Right. So we know that that HTML is going to be important for the actual structure of the page, CSS as well. But JavaScript can change this visual internal representation of the page, the DOM, and it can change what that looks like. So seemingly what happened, because I was like, hey, how is this like massive change able to happen? Did we need a different Java engine to like interpret this? And it's no, because remember, React is a JavaScript library. Right? So basically what happened is like really fucking smart people took advantage, and I say that in the best way possible, of their understanding of how JavaScript works and the inherent flexibility with the language, and basically switched it such that it reframed the user interface as data instead of instructions. And that allows for this like constantly changing nature of things without breaking things, which is like really cool. So as I understand it, before it would happen, and it feels like a bit of a misnomer, it's like a little difficult to understand, is that it would be manually, I don't know if I want to say manually updated, but the DOM would be manually, in my brain it kind of makes more sense to say manually set. And because of that, you have to be, it sounds kind of like an if-then case, like if this, then this, if this, then this, and if this, then this. But then like things would override and it doesn't scale. So if it's like one person using it, I guess, or like one thing, you're like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But like at scale, it's like if this, then this, if this, then this, and this, and then shit would break. So instead of having the JavaScript as instructions, if this, then this, this, then this, it reframed it and did it as data. And that's basically what I've learned and understood. Chat decided to throw JSX out at me, and I was like, motherfucker, what is this? Why are you giving me this new thing? Because then it was like, oh, but it doesn't even actually need it, but it can. And I was like, that's too much. I just didn't understand. It's too much for a day and 2 days. So that is where I'm at. I'm actually very happy. I feel very good about it. I can conceptualize the things. And again, I will sing the praises of AI, because without ChatGPT, I'm not understanding this. And no one's having the patience for me to be like, wait, but what about? I could probably also put ChatGPT into learning mode or whatever the fuck it's called. What is it called? I'm on here right now. I see quizzes, study and learn. They keep changing the name. They're trying to, OpenAI is trying to stay relevant. And so by do that, they just add more shit, which is the worst fucking thing you could do. But I could put it into that mode and have it quiz me on things, but I'm liking this. I'm liking to write this stuff down, type it out, have the discussions, make these videos, and then go talk to Lex about it, whatever she's willing to listen about. She just loves hearing about this stuff. I think that she's like, oh, like, okay. But she like just really loves me, and so wants to hear about it. But it's good. I'm happy with it. We'll see what I do tomorrow. Basically, my plan is to just follow the course and get through this first course. Kay has his course as well, which is like way ahead and like deeper dive. And so there's like so much that I can do just to provide some structure, right? Because you could just learn everything. And like, I'm watching this YouTube channel that just like, basically this guy that kind of shits on AI, but I think he's going to like sing a different tune soon. But I'm watching all these things, but just to give it a little bit of structure, it's going through the course. Then I'll have to probably make some stuff. It's kind of counterintuitive for me because, my online business background is, and my belief is one that you don't find people for your product, you build a product for your people. So it's kind of like, well, I need like a use case to like make something. Like I made a Pomodoro timer and I was like, but why? Like, because it was the like homework thing. But there are in the course, it is a very good course. And there's like homework things to do. So like I will likely go through that and see, and like, I'll go back and kind of be playing around with Git. I got to figure out like, do I want to be using Cursor, or like, how do I want to be doing things? Because this other fucking guy keeps talking about how Cursor be given too much code. And I'm like, okay, he says chat is a little better. Not chat, not chat. Claude is a little bit better. And I'm like, all right, so should I go into that? So I'll figure that out. But the structure kind of my curriculum right now is largely just these online courses. And so starting with, going to finish Nate's course, which is Build Your First App. And then I will continue with Kay's course because it's more finance person centered and focused. But Kay is incredibly smart and he also lives on the road, so I can like meet up with him. But yeah, feeling super grateful and feeling super excited, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. Okay. Maestro out.